Welcome to the Midwest Marvel Podcast. Today we are doing our complete Phase 4 rankings, including shows, movies, and special presentations, and we are so incredibly pumped about this. I am your host, Nick Adams, aka Midwest Marvel Guy, and I am joined by the man that the Guardians of the Galaxy actually tried to kidnap before they went after Kevin Bacon, Zeke Farnsworth.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It is going
Drax
great.
and Mantis, they just couldn't catch me.
You're
I'm
too
too
much for him,
quick.
bro.
I'm too quick. I'm actually a mutant. If you guys didn't know that, I'm like faster than speed,
Faster than
you
speed. You're like Lightning McQueen. I am speed.
Yeah, I am speed.
That's awesome. Well, hey, we're gonna get right into this because there are 18 projects to rank, and so that may take some time, and so we don't want to just mess around with other stuff. We want to get right into the heart of this. But quickly before we get into the actual rankings of Phase 4, just some brief thoughts about Phase 4 as a whole, because now it's done. It's officially over. The holiday special was the very last project in the phase. Wakanda Forever was the last movie. The holiday special, the last TV project, and so it's over. Phase 5 is the next thing that comes up, and I believe the first thing in Phase 5 will be Quantumania. I could be wrong. There might be a show before that, but I think Quantumania kicks it off, but maybe I'm wrong. But just general thoughts about Phase 4 as a whole, now that it's done, because it's been, what, two years or so in the making?
Ish.
Yeah.
It anything after Endgame is Phase 4, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
So
I
except
overall,
for Far From Home.
Right.
Far From Home was still Phase 3. But yeah, after that point, everything else was Phase 4.
Mm-hmm. Right. Overall, Phase 4 is it's probably my second favorite.
Yeah.
Second favorite phase.
Yeah.
It had some stinkers in there for sure. It definitely we had some that don't really compare to what we've had in the past, but also Marvel's heading in a new direction, so it will probably contribute to that. So I don't want to say that these are stinkers quite yet, because they could tie into something really good later on.
Right. Well, and not to mention, too, the other thing about it is, there have been some stinkers. And by stinkers, I don't know. For me, I've enjoyed pretty much every single thing. There's one that I haven't, and it's going to show up in my rankings. And if y'all listen, you already know what it is. But I've pretty much enjoyed everything that this phase has had. Yes, some have been better than others. There's definitely tiers of greatness. But there have been so many projects, though. That's the thing. And when you have this many projects in a phase, yes, by sheer volume, you're going to get some that just aren't going to live up to some of the others. To put it in perspective, there were 18 projects in this phase, and there were 11 projects in Phase 3. So that's 7 more projects in Phase 4 than there were in Phase 3. That's a lot. And that's pretty much the TV shows by and large. There were 8 TV shows, I believe, and then we had, I think, 2 special presentations. So the TV shows pretty much makes up for that difference. And so when you have that much volume and that much quantity, you're bound to have a couple of, letdowns or whatever it is that however you want to categorize that. But even the letdowns, I still enjoyed, and we'll talk about that in the rankings. But I think people are going to look back on this phase and realize that it is much better than originally thought. I think the phase receives way too much hate.
I totally agree. In comparison with this is probably going to be, if instead of breaking it up between Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4, if we just looked as Phase 4 as a new slate for Marvel in general, even though it's still using some of the same characters, this is the basis of where we're going.
Right. And Phase 1, when you look at Phase 1, first of all, it was incredibly short. It's funny to look back now at the list of the Phase 1 projects and Phase 2 as well, and see how it was 4 projects long. 4 or 5, I think, is what Phase 1 was. And so incredibly short. So you can't even really compare it in that sense. But even in Phase 1, you had Hulk, which is universally regarded as one of the worst MCU projects, and then you had Thor, which is definitely in the bottom of I think almost everybody's ranking. And so,
Mm-hmm.
by you had two right there in Phase One that just were okay or even below average, and no one talks about that.
Right.
And I just think like it's bound to happen again. Your world building, your universe building, and people do look back on some of those. People look back on Hulk now and they say, "Oh, Hulk's better than people give it credit for." And after some time passes, the same exact thing has happened with the Star Wars prequels, right? The Star Wars prequels were universally hated when they came out. Every single one of them, even Revenge of the Sith. But now people look back and they watch those prequels, and Revenge of the Sith is in a lot of people's like the top of their ranking when
Yeah.
it comes to Star Wars films. And it's just so funny to see that evolution. And I don't think it's because it was really, really, really bad when it came out. I just think like some things as time goes on, they age better. And especially when you get perspective, and the MCU obviously is all about perspective because everything ties into each other. When you get that perspective, you look back at other projects. I think the same thing has happened with Age of Ultron for for Avengers movies. Everybody disliked that at first, and now you look back at Age of
Right.
Ultron, and it has so many tie-ins to everything that
Right.
comes after it. And now it's like, oh yeah, like a lot of this is really cool. Like we see
Yeah.
all these references of things that have happened since then, and
Right.
it's just a more enjoyable experience, I think.
Yeah, and with like movies like Age of Ultron, like that one having so many tie-ins, like there's a possibility that people didn't like it because they didn't understand what was going on.
Right, it's still
I
building to
mean,
something.
yeah, exactly. Like we just have to wait with some of these that are like we're like, oh, like that one wasn't quite hitting like I thought it would.
Right.
Just wait. Just wait 2 years. Kevin Feige's got a plan,
Yeah.
and Feige we trust.
Yep, exactly. Exactly, dude. I still have massive trust in Feige, and I know people have given him crap, but listen, there's still been some bangers in Phase Four, and I think when we look ahead to the slate of Phase Five and Six, it's even more exciting than Phase Four, and I think there's potential in Phase Five and Six to be the best phases that the MCU has had at this point. And
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
absolutely.
very excited. What do you think? Like when you look back at Phase Four, 2, 3 years from now, what will be like? What will Phase Four be remembered by? What will Phase
Their
like
shows.
the themes or whatever? Yeah, the
Their
shows.
shows for sure. Just them breaking into like series instead of just movies
Yeah,
that can offer so much more in depth to a character than a movie could.
yeah,
So like we know characters now like um Moon Knight, Kamala Khan, She-Hulk, like we know some more the more intricacies of these characters than we would like I
right,
mean Tony Stark we eventually, but that's
right.
over
10 movies.
10 movies.
Yeah,
And like Peter Parker that's over like
like
5 or
five.
6
Yeah,
movies. So it's like we know as much about these people as we do about those and they took 10
yeah,
movies or so and now this is 6 episodes and it's one season and now we're like oh like I'm
yeah.
just as attached to this character as I am to that one. So I think phase 4 is going to be remembered
Exactly.
for the shows and I think Marvel's doing something really awesome there.
Yeah, we just need them to figure out that pacing, which I think they are. I think
Hmm.
Disney is figuring out the pacing of these shows because when you look at it up to this point, everything has been six, right? Six has been the magic number for whatever stupid reason. That's what they landed on, and
Right.
I am not shy about the fact that I think that is the dumbest format for a show in history. I absolutely hate it. I think it makes pacing horrible. I think it makes things feel rushed.
There's
I
no middle.
no, it just feels so weird. And then you watch a show like Andor, which I know you just started, and I just finished it yesterday. No, 2 days ago, and incredible. It's 12 episodes long, and each episode is roughly 45, 50 minutes. And when I tell you that that is one of the best and most well done shows I've seen, period, not just Star Wars, period. And they everything was so perfect about it. I just can't brag on that show enough. Character development,
Hmm.
plot development, world building, storytelling, the high points and the peaks that things were building to, amazing. And all I could think as I was watching it is like, man, imagine if Marvel can figure out a show like this. Like, imagine if we get something of this quality from Marvel. Looking at you, Daredevil.
they're
Because like
they're
18
they're the
episodes,
same
like
studios.
right.
They've got to figure it out.
18 episodes, man. I feel like they are starting to get it a little bit. We saw 9 with She-Hulk, so they're clearly they're
Hmm.
willing to branch. Now I do think some of the upcoming ones are 6. I think Secret Invasion is going to be 6, but we know Daredevil's 18. And now
Bingo.
there were rumors this weekend, and pretty heavy rumors, not just like, little like do I believe it, but pretty heavy rumors from multiple sources that Daredevil Born Again is going to be TVMA. And
Yeah.
so Disney's listening. Like Marvel is listening. They know what people want, and I think they're starting to figure it out. There are still going to be some misses, but I think they are figuring it out. I think they're learning from their mistakes, and yeah, like you said, that's part of why people haven't liked Phase 4. They're trying new things. They're figuring things out, but they're getting there, and we've seen that as the phase has gone on, right? And the phase ended
Right.
incredibly strong, and it's just only going to get stronger as it heads into Phase 5.
Yeah.
Um, I think when I look back at Phase 4, I'm going to remember it for two things. The shows is a good one, but I'm going to remember it for its trauma, because there was so much trauma that characters
Hmm.
experienced in this. I mean, you have Wanda, like right away, started the phase, just incredibly traumatic stuff that we saw with Wanda. You saw Moon Knight, you saw Peter Parker in Spider-Man No Way Home just go through absolute just everything, and Wakanda Forever, Black Widow, trying to
Falcon
think
and the
of
Winter Soldier.
right.
Loki.
Loki went through
Yep.
some. Yeah, this was a and Thor: Love and Thunder. As much as I want to keep that show's name or movie's name out of my mouth, but there was some there too, just poorly done. But yeah, so much
I am
trauma in
Groot.
this phase. Yeah, right. Yeah, almost killed that whole just mass genocide on that little colony of things. Um, and by and large, it was portrayed so well. I thought Marvel did such a good job of just
Hmm.
portraying that, and that was new for them. We haven't really seen that aside from Endgame. We haven't seen too much of that, at least not as in depth as they did. And so I love that they were willing to go to a darker place like that.
Hmm.
And then the other thing I think it's going to be remembered for is its villains, because there were some like top tier best MCU villains of all time in
Absolutely.
this phase. And as I'm saying this, one of the next podcast episodes we need to do is just a complete villain ranking of the entire MCU. I think that would be great. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, it's so hard to like right before all these great villains that we've had in Phase 4. It was Thanos and Loki, Killmonger, some of the best. And
Vulture's up there, I think, for a lot of people, which he's done
yeah.
really well. Zemo is another one, but like, yeah,
Hmm.
you had this phase, Green Goblin, and the way he is portrayed. That was his best portrayal in, I think, any movie he was in. Mandarin in Shang-Chi, just
Yep.
perfect. Kang, Wanda, Namor, again, as much as I want to admit it, but like Gore, Christian Bale did
Hmm.
his thing. They just set him up for failure. But Gore, with what he was given, was phenomenal.
Yeah. Ethan Hawke
Great
and
villains. Yeah.
Moon
Oh
Knight.
gosh, yeah. Didn't even think about him. And I don't think I loved his character. Some people I think are just iffy
I
on
loved
him.
him too.
I thought he was really good. But yeah,
Is it just me or do Ethan Hawke and Kevin Bacon like look strikingly similar?
bro, they have similarities without a doubt.
I was
They're cut
watching
from the
the
same cloth.
special and I was like, my goodness, those two are very similar.
You throw long hair on Kevin Bacon and he's Arthur Harrow.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
is.
We're gonna deal with some variants.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it then. So here's how the ranking is going to go. We got 18 projects. We're going to start with 18 and we're just going to take turns and go back and forth here talking about which projects we have ranked where. And I got some visuals that have shown up on the left side of the screen here. And so I'll be able to see kind of where things are getting ranked. And then we have some criteria as to why we have each one. And we're not going to go extremely in depth on pretty much any of them just because there are 18. If we went super in depth and gave a dissertation on every movie and show, we'd be here. It's 11 o'clock right now. We'd be here until 4 o'clock. So we're not going to do that. And you guys don't want to watch something that long. All right. Kicking it off. I'll start it off at number 18, the very last spot. And you could probably guess what I'm going to put here because my number 18 spot, baby, goes to Thor Love and Thunder. Thor Love and Thunder going to 18. And listen, man, part of this is just strictly out of spite. And part of it is because I think it actually deserves to be ranked there. Three things you can guarantee in life: death, taxes, and me slandering the crap out of Thor Love and Thunder. Like, I will do it to the day that I die. It's becoming a part of my personality. I don't care. When I think of this movie, the only thing that I will ever be able to think of is how much wasted potential this movie had and how disappointed I was by it. Like, the excitement level was so high and my disappointment, the satisfaction was so low. And oh man, yeah, I just, out of spite, I don't care. If we did a full MCU ranking, I will rank this thing last. Like, Hulk,
dead last.
Thor the Dark World, you're all getting thrown over it. Yeah, I don't have it in me to rank it anywhere else. Like, and I Am Groot is on this list. So if that tells you anything, I Am Groot made it above Thor Love and Thunder, and I don't even care because I'm that stinking petty. Good news though. Chris Hemsworth said this week in an interview that he wants a drastically different tone for Thor if he does it again. So
yeah,
praise the heavens, dude, because I'm assuming like they're going to bring him back. They set him up to come back.
They have to.
The end of Love and Thunder clearly leads to more for him. And yeah, in the interview, he doesn't shout out Love and Thunder and Taika directly, but by the words that he says and the way that he says things, like, he's definitely talking about Love and Thunder, and he's definitely talking about the extreme tone. And there's no way that any of them are naive to how poorly that was received. They don't want to go through that again. Ragnarok was done so well. Yeah, I love Taika. Yeah. It's time to move on, bro. Like, I almost think you're becoming a victim of your own success. You need to just go figure it out. You're a great director for a lot of things, but right now, you've worn your welcome in the MCU. Maybe take a couple years off or take a year off, come back. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Thor Love and Thunder has left a sour taste in my mouth. So that's my 18.
18 is Thor Love and Thunder. Okay.
Yep.
For me, I have I Am Groot right there.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
It's not like there's no hate against the show. It's just that they're a minute long and it's funny, but right now has no correlation.
No,
like, to
no, it has no tie-in whatsoever.
Right. And so it's just a little cute thing. It's gonna eventually, whenever I have kids, get my kids introduced in the MCU at a very young age. So that'll be great. It's gonna be a good tie-in for me later.
Yeah. See, I have I Am Groot at number 17 because I'm obviously not going to rank that any higher than what than anything else, but it had to go above Thor Love and Thunder for me. And I believe that in like an entire 5 minutes of showtime, I Am Groot did comedy better and balanced its tone better than Thor Love and Thunder was able to in 2 hours. So just I will find a way to take a shot at Love and Thunder in every single ranking in this entire episode. Watch me. So yeah, I Am Groot. Yeah, everything you said about 17. It fits for mine. Yeah, number 17 for me.
My 17 is Black Widow, and it's like no hate on the movie or anything. It was a fantastic movie, just in the wrong phase.
Right, exactly.
I wish we would have had that. I love Florence Pugh, or Pugh. How do you pronounce her last name? Pugh?
I think it's Pugh, but I'm going to start pronouncing it Pugh from now on.
Pugh. I heard it in an interview pronounced Pooh once, and I was like,
maybe
really
it is. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't know.
That's funny.
But I loved her character. I loved Red Guardian. I thought,
I can't wait to see more of him.
I want to see more of him. And it just I think it was just in the wrong phase. I think it would have been better in another phase. And
it was 2 years too late.
Yeah, and that's my only reasoning. The other reasoning is I thought they did Taskmaster very poorly. Very poorly. I feel like that character could have been absolutely
and the comics Taskmaster is unreal, and it just did not do
and
it
in
justice.
the Spider-Man video game, he is sweet.
Yeah,
I play it on the PS4 often, and those are some of my favorite missions. And it's just I
They messed it up.
that's yeah, they messed it up. They messed it
Yeah.
up. So that's why I have Black Widow there.
Yeah, I talked about how Phase 4 would be remembered for its villains, and it will for its good ones, but it equally
Yep.
had some like really terrible and all-time bad
Awful ones.
villains. Yeah. Yes. I feel like so far we're pretty similar, although I'm a little offended that Thor: Love and Thunder is not in your bottom two. So
Well,
that's yeah, I'm gonna take offense. But my number 16 is Black Widow. For a lot of same reasons that yours is. Honestly, another reason it's down so low is because I've only seen it once and I don't remember hardly anything. And I'll be honest, when I first watched it, my mind was not really focused on that I had just lost my job or knew I was going to lose my job at the time. And so my mind was not really focused on the movie and I half paid attention. And so, yeah, I honestly need to watch it again. Do I think it'll be ranked much higher than I have it at 16? No, probably not. If anything, it
no.
bumps up one, maybe two spots. But
I don't even think it'll bump up for you, to be honest.
maybe not. And I don't remember disliking it. I just remember walking. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, that was good. That was fine.
Yeah.
But same thoughts that you had. Yeah, Florence Pugh, Yelena, fantastic addition to the MCU. Red Guardian, fantastic addition. Excited to see them. It did set up things like Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Hmm.
But yeah, completely agree with everything you said. You're number
Yeah.
16.
Is Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay, there we go. All right.
My only reasoning that I have it higher than Black Widow is because I truly love Gore as a villain, and I just feel like
Yeah.
I it I feel it could go to 17. You could swap Black Widow and Thor: Love and Thunder for
Yeah.
me, and I don't think I'd be upset. It's just Christian Bale as Gore. I want it in my head to be as good as I'm imagining it to be,
Yeah.
and it just that's the only reason why is I like Christian Bale that much. I'm just
Bale
like
did
I
his
really
thing.
want him up there.
No, he crushed it. They just set him up
Yeah.
horribly. And again, I'm a victim of the comics here because I read those comics, the whole thing it was based on, and Gore, for as good as Bale portrayed him, could have and should have been so much more. And he should
Right.
have been on a Thanos level of just being a ridiculous threat to the MCU, and they just butchered it. They shortened his backstory a ton, which took a lot of depth away from his character,
Hmm.
and he was way more menacing in the comics than he ever was. For a guy named the God Butcher, we saw no butchering of gods whatsoever, which I'm like, if you want to make your movie family friendly, that's fine. One, don't talk about orgies. That was weird. Like family friendly, and then we have a whole 10-minute
Right.
scene about that, whatever. But also, don't use him as your villain. Let someone else use him and do it the right way. And yeah, I'll stop on Thor
We
11. See, I told you, I'm gonna find a way
used
to
it
bring
for
it
Thor
up.
4.
Yeah,
If we get a Thor 4 in a completely different direction,
right. Can
I
we
hope
just?
they bring Gore back.
I
Just
think
bring him back. Let him do his thing.
I think that's the thing that makes me most upset is that they're not gonna redo it.
No.
They just don't.
Mm-mm.
Like that's not what you do. Like, you move on. It's been done. You move on. And so it makes me so upset that one of the better villains in the comics will never be touched on again, at least not for a really long time,
Right.
because they just butchered the absolute crap out of it. And that's what makes me the most upset. Like, man, so much wasted potential there.
Yeah.
And
And when I look back on it, I'm like, they could have used him in Moon Knight and had him like at the very end
yeah.
just annihilate some Egyptian
Oh
gods.
yeah. Yeah.
That would have been a
That
great
would've been
setup
so
for
good.
it. But
Yes.
they
Ugh.
they completely missed the mark, and I don't
Yep.
know if that's Taika's fault. I don't know
I
if it's the writer's fault.
listen, man, Taika, I love him, but that movie had his fingerprints all over it, like
All
the
over it,
style,
yeah.
everything, and just to the extreme. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was unfortunate. Noah, mutual friend of ours, saw Love and Thunder for the first time this weekend, and when he asked me beforehand, he said he was going to watch it. And he's like, "Okay, what should I expect?" And I said, "Here, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Middle and an end.
Film was shot. There are characters, and that's it." And he texted me halfway through and said, "Dude, we have to take a break from watching it because it feels like I'm just watching a parody of a Marvel movie. It's that bad." And after he finished it, hours later, he texted me. He's like, "Yep, you were right. It had a beginning, middle, and an end. It certainly was a film, and that's all I can say about it." And yeah, dude, it's
Right.
okay. Number 15. My 15 is, I know this one's probably going to be ranked much lower than yours because of where you had it show wise when we did the show rankings. But my number 15 is What If, and again, nothing that I didn't enjoy about the show. For me, it just did not hook me emotionally because of the fact that it was almost an anthology in the sense that at first it seemed like every episode just kind of stood on its own, and then it did tie in together at the end, but you still didn't have that much emotional attachment to the characters.
Right.
But still really well done in a lot of ways, and I understand a lot of people have this ranked higher than I do, but if something doesn't
I
grab me
only have it
emotionally,
slightly.
it's really hard for me to get invested. And maybe season 2 will be better. I hope it will.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 15 is What If.
Yep. 15 for me is Hawkeye.
Okay.
There nothing wrong with the show. I
Fun
fully
show.
expect, yeah, I fully expect Haley Steinfeld to be the leader of the Young Avengers, or at least take some initiative and do that. I think it'll be great to see her as Hawkeye.
Yep.
And moving forward, I'm mostly holding a grudge about it because it came out at the same time
Yeah, the
as
whole No Way Home
Spider-Man,
thing. Yep.
and he should have been included. That would have he really should have been.
Yeah.
Because it really confuses me as a theorist. I'm like,
Yeah.
so many tie-ins could have been brought.
Could
And
have.
like, you want your street level stuff, Spider-Man, Matt Murdock, cool. And Kingpin, this is how you introduce him.
Yeah.
Like, this is how you should have introduced. But it's fine.
Yeah.
I like the show still.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder if they were trying to avoid too many cameos, especially in a season where you just had Spider-Man No Way Home, which was just flush with cameos, and you had Multiverse of Madness, which was flush with cameos. And I just wonder if they were trying to maybe avoid some of that and just not become the cameo people all of a sudden, because that's what a lot of people have kind of expected it to be. My number 14 is Miss Marvel. Like I talked about before, really well done show. Honestly, one of the more well done shows, just as far as cinema goes. And when you talk about character, plot development, layout, pacing, all that stuff, storytelling, Miss Marvel, one of the best out of any of the MCU shows. Yep. But like this ranking, and this is going to come into play for some of my top rankings, a lot of it's based on my enjoyment of this stuff. And so just because it's well done, and I did enjoy it, but for me, just largely forgettable. Honestly, not too many iconic moments when I think about things that happened. Like, I don't think about Miss Marvel and think about one or two moments that I'm like, oh my gosh, aside from her revealing herself as a mutant, which was just very, very short and sweet at the end. But other than that, largely forgettable. Had a fantastic finale, one of the best finales in all the TV shows. But yeah, largely forgettable. Still really good. Looking forward to the Marvels movie. But yeah, just can't put it that high.
Yeah. Yeah, my 14 is the Eternals movie.
Okay.
I don't really have any gripes with it other than the fact that we have a celestial floating in the middle of the ocean. And I will say, why didn't Black Panther Wakanda Forever address this?
Maybe there's an ocean on the other side of the world. I don't know.
I don't know. It makes me...
There was so much going on in that movie, though. They weren't going to touch on that.
Right. It just makes me... I don't know. I just feel like Eternals was kind of just standing on its own. And I was like, why weren't they able to help with Thanos? And like, you bring in Star Fox, who's like, I'm Thanos' brother, blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's enough connection there where they could have helped. I don't know.
Although they didn't know Star Fox beforehand, but they did explain in the movie why they couldn't help, because they were given the direct order from the Celestials not to interfere.
Not to interfere. But then they killed a Celestial because they didn't want the humans to die. So I'm just like, kind of like,
I mean, it makes sense. Okay, because once they get attached to him and they realize, oh, your plan all along was to like just basically slaughter this entire race, then they finally decide to step in, and there's character growth there. But yeah, my 15 or 13 is pretty similar up to this point. I have Eternals as well, and beautiful movie, maybe the most beautiful movie in all of the MCU. And I enjoyed this movie a lot more than most, actually. I walked out and I was like, man, that was really good. And I still think it was really good. My opinion on it hasn't changed. It's just that all these things that are getting ranked above it at this point they're just better. It has to be ranked somewhere. I do think it should have been 2 movies. There were just so many characters to introduce, and I would have loved to have gotten to know the characters more and had more of an emotional attachment to them, especially because so many of them died off in the movie. And so I didn't feel any emotional tugs at my heart when these characters died, because I didn't know him. I had,
Right.
only known him for a couple minutes at that point. So yeah, really wish there would have been like a part one and a part two of Eternals. I think honestly, I think they'd be some of the better movies in the MCU had they done it that
Mm-hmm.
way. But
Right.
was still
Or
good.
if they had it set way back in time, I think
Right,
that
part
could
one
have.
is like early on. Part two,
Right.
then we get to see the development of them. And yeah, part one is more like they're just following orders, and part two they realize what's going on, and yeah, we get what we got in our movie.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
enjoyed it, but yeah, number 13 for me.
13. Yeah, my 13 is What If.
Okay, there it
Um,
is.
I really enjoyed the show. I liked how they were kind of like standalone and then had a little tie together. It just
Yeah,
reminded
see
me of,
the reason you liked it is the reason which I mean we're two rankings
yeah,
away, but
but it reminded me of have you seen the Avengers movie that it's like I mean it's like a cartoon version of it where it
I
introduces
have
Black
not.
Panther. It reminded me of that in a little bit of a way, whereas it for me it's more of a nostalgia purpose, where it's like, oh, action, 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 and like it's in a world where you're like, oh, that is totally believable because this is a cartoon.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like for me, I was like, yeah, that I just enjoyed it.
that makes sense. Yeah, I'm looking forward to season two. I really am.
Yeah,
I know I rank it low, but I'm excited for season two. I think there's a lot of creative possibilities with that show.
right. And I think it also shows how like strong Ultron could have been if he would have succeeded, which
Yeah. Oh yeah. Which kind of I think feeds fuel into the fire of the people that feel like Ultron was poorly done in Age of Ultron, which I don't think he was as poorly done as some people say.
no.
I do think he could have been more menacing. I think we look at Ultron right now, and we're like, yeah, he's roughly like a top 6, 7, 8 villain in the
Yeah,
MCU.
top
When
10.
when realistically he could have and should have probably been top three. So I mean
Hmm.
I get it. Uh, my number
Right.
12 is continuing with the shows Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And again,
Man,
I
it's, di-
I know
it's
well
disrespectful. I'm just kidding.
it just suffer and again in some aspects it's one of the more well done shows, but it suffers more than probably anything else on this list other than Black Widow. It suffers from just a ridiculously weak villain. Like just a
Hmm.
ridiculously weak villain. And the
Right.
show was odd, like the pacing of the show was weird. Tonally, the show was confused at times. I think it started with a certain tone that was much like, yeah, just different from how the show ended, which has been an issue for almost every Marvel show because,
Right.
again, the 6 episode format is just super stinking weird and they don't know what they're doing with that. And yeah, tonally, it was weird. The finale was good, weirdly paced, not great. But it did have some really iconic moments, and I'm a huge Captain America fan, huge Bucky fan, and I think it does set up a lot of really good things. I enjoyed it. I'm actually in the middle of rewatching it again, but yeah, it's in the bottom half for me.
At my number 12, I have the Guardians Holiday Special.
Okay.
It's not that I just watched it for the first time last night,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. It's a perfect holiday movie in my opinion. I mean,
So well
I would
done.
like to make a tradition out of it for sure. I thought it was funny. It was good. It was very heartwarming. I'm just like, it doesn't really like
It's hard to rank the special presentations too
right.
because it's a one-off thing. It's just one episode or movie for 40 minutes,
Hmm.
so it's hard to compare
Exactly.
to a 2.5 hour movie or a 5, 6, 8 episode, 9 episode show.
Exactly. So it's like I enjoyed it. I didn't dislike anything in it. I
Right.
thought this new look for Groot, I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
He
I like
cracked
this
me up
look.
the whole show. I like how spoiler alert. I
Oh
like how Rocket.
yeah. By the way, yeah. We should probably say if you haven't seen the Guardians holiday special, then yeah, maybe skip ahead just 30 seconds because yeah, we don't
Yeah.
want to spoil this for you.
I'm glad Rocket finally got Bucky's arm. I
Dude, I need to know
there could
how.
be a
I
funny
need to like we
implication
have to
there
get backstory on that at some point. I need to know how that came
because it was
about.
his Wakandan arm.
Yeah. The one he
So
specifically asked for in Infinity War, which was just such a great callback.
right. So it's
That was
like
so good. Not what I was
Yeah.
expecting at all when he was opening that up. I'm like, what in the world could they have given Rocket? I just assumed it was a gun or something, and then it
Right.
was the arm. I'm like, no way.
Yep. It cracked me up. And so that, I mean, no, there's no, and I also might have it this low because I don't want James Gunn to leave.
Yeah,
But
for sure. Yeah, it was very bittersweet for me because as much as I enjoyed it, it was a reminder to me that we are at the end of the James Gunn Guardians era, and we
right,
may see more of the Guardians in the MCU. They may not be done with their story, but we're definitely done with James Gunn in the MCU, which is so sad because
right.
he's done nothing but just make hit after hit after hit, and this was no different.
Yeah. And I'm excited for the next Guardians movie too.
Yep. Oh man. So and I have a feeling it's going to be just like emotional, but to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 11 is Hawkeye. There wasn't an episode I did not enjoy, and I love the
Mm-hmm.
addition of Kate Bishop. Loved her chemistry with Elena. Loved getting to just know Hawkeye more in depth, a guy who was largely a forgettable Avenger up to that point. And I think most people, when that show came out, they weren't looking forward to it because who the heck cares about Hawkeye? And they made us care about Hawkeye, and it was good. Again,
Right.
didn't love the villain reveal. I just hate the whole wait till the last episode to reveal the villain. And then when that villain ended up being Kingpin, it's like, man, this guy should have been in the show from episode one. Like, you can't
Right.
throw Kingpin in at the very end, at least not the way that you did. Loki, completely different. I feel like that's the one show where it worked, and it worked to
Mm-hmm.
perfection, and it made 1,000% sense to have Kang show up at the end. And he had an entire episode of just dialogue, which made it even better. If it had just been a couple of action scenes and then they threw him out, I would have been way more upset. But you had an entire finale of Kang just talking and Jonathan Majors
Mm-hmm.
acting just on another level. So yeah, Hawkeye, my number 11.
My number 11 is She-Hulk. I just rewatched it.
Did you?
So I think, yeah, I think my ranking of it might have switched from when we ranked the TV shows with what
Okay.
I've got above it. I I liked it.
What'd you think? Better or not as, I don't want to say worse because worse has a bad connotation, but like, did you
Mhm.
like it more or less the second time you watched
I
it?
liked it more. I
Okay.
liked it more. I found it a little more. There were some things I caught that I didn't catch before.
Yeah.
And those things, and you know, her character is very relatable and she's
Yeah.
funny. And I was just like, this is actually I think it's a solid show. I think it gets too much hate. But
I
I
completely
think
agree.
there's a ton of projects in this that are better in phase 4.
Yeah.
But that's why I have it at number 11.
Yeah. My top 10 now. We're almost into the top half of everything. So this one was very tough for me as far as where I wanted to rank this project. And it's Multiverse of Madness,
Whoa.
number
All right.
10. This was very tough for me to rank. I didn't want to rank it any lower. I'll say that
Hmm.
10 is the floor for this, but I feel like it potentially has a higher ceiling. It's been a while since I've seen it. This is the movie where more than any other movie or project that I've seen in Phase 4, I enjoyed it significantly more. The first time I watched it, I was just like, it's okay. Second time I
Hmm.
watched it, I walked out and I was like, that might be a top 10 MCU movie for me. I loved it the second time. And I don't know if it's just
Right.
because expectations going into it the first time were so stupidly high. And that's
Hmm.
on Marvel. Like, you guys hyped it up to be something that it wasn't. And I think that's why
Right.
people ended up just not enjoying it as much. And so I think the first time I was like everybody else, I had these expectations of all these things it was going to be, and it just wasn't. But then when I watched it the second time and I just went in with my expectations having been curbed, and I knew what like the movie was supposed to be, I got to appreciate the style, the directing style. I got to appreciate a lot of the creative choices. I got to appreciate the story a lot more. I do
Right.
feel like it was very rushed. I wish
Same.
I don't
It was rushed.
understand. I don't understand when you have these 2.5 hour projects, which I know some people don't like long ones. I like longer ones. I don't understand why that's the movie you chose to cut short. I feel like
Right.
that's the one that needed to probably be close to 2.5 hours, it definitely could have benefited from an additional 15,
I
20,
would
30
have loved to
minutes.
see more Illuminati
Yeah,
in that movie.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, pacing was definitely off, but I loved how unique it was. It was
Hmm.
one of the most unique projects the MCU has ever done, and I appreciate that they were willing to go there with that. And it makes me excited for things they'll try in the future. And so, yeah, again, this is number 10 for me. It could definitely be higher, but now the rankings just get tricky
Yeah.
as you start getting into these top 10.
I only have that slightly higher than where you have it,
Okay.
and it's because I watched it on uh
Disney
Halloween
Plus.
night.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, it has been quite a while for me. So
So it worked with Halloween night. Like it
perfectly. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually like some of it I would like you're right going into that movie the expectations were just so high, especially coming off of Spider-Man."
Right.
And so it was like, yeah, I totally understand. But my number 10 is Miss Marvel.
Okay.
I absolutely love that show. I can't rank it any lower, um, just because I think everything that I have below it, in my own opinion, is below it, like plot wise, show wise, character wise. Um, but also I think everything that's above it is just on a different level. I think from here on out, like we're
Yeah.
getting
Yeah. We're
into
getting
the
into
better
some top
ones.
tier stuff here.
But I actually really enjoyed Miss Marvel as a show.
Yeah.
Kamala Khan is
Same.
going to be a great introduction to the MCU here. So
Yeah. I agree. Number 9. This is officially like the halfway point. My number 9 is She Hulk. So I
okay.
was obviously a very big fan of this show and a huge proponent of it. I feel like it got way too much hate. This show was just so stinking fun. Did it have faults? Absolutely. There were
Hmm.
things that could have been done better, without a doubt. And I'm not naive to that. But again, a lot of this is based on enjoyment for me. And it was just so fun to me. It was so different. I love Jen Walters. Jen Walters, Tatiana
Yep.
Maslany, one of the greatest additions to the MCU, period. Love Daredevil, made us so stinking hype. It could have definitely
Yep.
went another way with Daredevil. They could have messed it up, and they didn't. They absolutely nailed it, especially in a show that was
Yeah.
already so polarizing. They could have screwed it up horribly, and they didn't. It was as good as it could have been with his introduction to the MCU. I don't know if you could have done it better. Some people would say it could have been TVMA. Maybe you're right, but that's not what She-Hulk was. So for what She-Hulk
Yeah.
was, throwing Daredevil in could not have been better, and the finale was uh the finale I will never
Phenomenal.
forget. I will never forget watching the finale because
Yep.
it was so stinking unique and it epitomized the show in every way. So yeah,
Yeah.
She Hulk's number
Speaking
9.
of that finale, fourth wall breaks. Did you catch Rocket's fourth wall break and
I didn't, but I'm gonna have to
the
catch that
special?
today.
It's after the credits.
Okay. Oh yeah. I did. I know what you're talking about now. I did catch that.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's a new
That's
thing.
funny.
It was short. It wasn't really nothing, but
Yeah. All right, you're
um,
number 9.
is Werewolf by Night.
Okay.
I I would love to rank this higher. I really would. But I just can't. But I truly love this little special. It was I just thought it was so much fun. I've watched it like 2 or 3 times already. I just really enjoyed it. I like that character a whole lot. I don't know why. I'm just like super drawn to him. And then Man Thing, Swamp Thing, Man
So
Thing,
good. Man Thing.
Man
Swamp Thing
Thing,
is DC, I think,
DC. That's
or
right.
just something else. Period. But yeah.
Yeah. But Man Thing, like I was like, that's really cool. And I like the introduction of monsters. And I know he correlates to Moon Knight. So
Yeah.
I would like to see, anything to do with Moon Knight would be awesome.
Yeah.
But I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Werewolves, vampires, Blade, like
What an introduction to the special presentations that was,
right.
and again, so unique. I'll talk about that here in a couple rankings when that shows up in mine. But
Hmm.
my number 8 is WandaVision.
Okay.
So and again, keeping in line, all these line up with how I ranked my shows when we did the show ranking at first, which
Yeah.
I didn't plan it that way initially, but that's just how it's panned out after I made my rankings. But WandaVision started off phase 4 and MCU shows in such an epic way. And again, it suffers from all the things that all the other shows do. Finale
Mm-hmm.
that just was riddled with big CGI fights and just crazy action when the rest of the show just wasn't really about that as much.
Right.
And yeah, I still enjoy the finale, but it definitely could have been a little bit different. But fantastic tone setter for Phase 4, and the experience of watching that show, and that plays a big part into these rankings for me as well. Is like, what was
Mm-hmm.
that experience like when I first
Right.
watched it? And WandaVision was an experience unlike pretty much any other MCU project in Phase 4, because that was a week to week event. Every time
Right.
WandaVision was coming on, bro, everybody was watching WandaVision because
Yep.
everybody wanted to know what the heck happened next because it was so mysterious. They were genius in starting off the Phase 4 shows with that. I remember not being that excited for it. I was like, why would I care about a show about Vision and Wanda? Like, those characters are just okay to me. I really don't have
Mm-hmm.
any interest. And once it started, I thought, okay, now I care. I'm in. You got me. You got me, Marvel. I'm hooked.
Yep. You got me hooked. Yep.
So that's my number 8.
My number 8 is Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
Right on.
I just rewatched it along with Werewolf by Night on Halloween night, and they both fit great. It was awesome. Just pretty much the same reasons you said. Um, I wish Illuminati was a little bit more prevalent in that movie. I wish we had more screen time
Yeah.
with John Krasinski as Reed Richards and Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel
Yeah.
and Captain Carter. I just and Professor X. Like I wanted to see like a little bit more of the dynamics there. Maybe dive into a little bit more history of what happened in that universe,
Right.
just so we can be a little bit more set up for whatever other multiversal things that are going to happen in the future. But apparently, Wanda is just that powerful. So
Yeah. Well,
we're
and,
just
and
gonna
honestly, I have no problem with the fight being the length it was. I know some people did. And the second time I
right. Yeah.
watched it, I was like, you know what? Like, we always talk about how Wanda is maybe the most powerful being in the MCU, and she gets in and
Right.
wipes the floor with the Illuminati, and everyone's like, "Oh, how does she beat him so fast?" I'm like, "Wait, okay, is she the most powerful? Isn't she?
Or yeah.
Which one are we landing on here?" So that I was okay with, but I agree with you in the sense that I wish there had just been more story with them in it, rather
Right.
than Strange showing up. Oh my gosh, Wanda's here, and they're like, "No, she's not," and then she shows up, kills him, it's done. I wish it would have
Yeah.
been more. Hey, someone's coming, we need to think about this, and then we get like 30 minutes of him with the Illuminati and just learning, like you said, their backstory and trying to
Hmm.
plan for Wanda and figure the whole thing out, and she still
Exactly.
comes and destroys them. But yeah, I agree. I think they could have been in so much longer than what they actually were. It
Yeah.
definitely felt like Marvel is just like, here you go, fans, here's a couple
Hmm.
cameos for you. All right, you satisfied? All right, kill them off, we're done with them.
Right.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
But number 7. Number 7 for me is the Guardians Holiday Special. And yeah, I mean, like everybody else,
Hmm.
I watched it yesterday and it was phenomenal. It may be the most wholesome project Marvel's ever done. And
Yeah.
surprisingly, this was emotional too.
Yeah.
I teared up twice, I think, while watching it. Surprisingly emotional. Kevin Bacon was hilarious in the show. I did not expect him to be in it as much as he was. I thought it was just going to be kind of a cameo thing based on the
Right.
trailer, and he ended up being a very big part of it. And I
Right.
loved it because he absolutely killed it. That dude committed to that role, and it was just so fantastic. And
Yeah.
what I
Because
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say because actors don't suck. They're actually
Right,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. They're not all giant pieces of crap. Yeah. And the thing I may love about most about this show is that this made me love the character of Mantis so much more. Before I
Right.
didn't, I'll be honest, I did not really care about Mantis. To me, she was kind of funny, but not hilarious. And I didn't really have much emotional investment in her. I just, if they'd have killed her character off a movie ago, I'd have just been like, okay. And now I feel like I love her character. This show
Hmm.
helped us get to know her character so much more. And there were some moments I was like super surprised. Like when she was fighting, I thought, I did not know Mantis could get down like this. And I loved seeing her and Drax's friendship and
Right.
getting an inside look to that because obviously we've known for a couple projects now that they are close. They're always hanging out together. And then spoilers, big spoilers ahead, skip ahead like 10, 15 seconds, but you find out she's Quill's sister, which was such an emotional moment.
Right.
Yeah, I lo- loved everything about that. And yeah, it again, just enjoyability is what puts it up so high. Hard to rank
Right.
because it's a show or a special
That's
presentation,
special.
but I enjoyed every second of it. I thought it was so stinking well done, and yeah, like you said, it's something I will come back and watch too every year.
Yep. My number 7 is WandaVision, just shortly after yours
Yep,
there. Yeah, I I I thought this show was great. It hooked me right at the beginning. It was one of the first or was it the first Phase 4 show? It was the
it
first
was the
Phase
first.
4
Yeah, it
show.
kicked off the
Yeah.
shows.
So I was in my dorm room, every what was that, Wednesday night, Thursday night,
Oh gosh, what were they at that time? I think they were Friday at that point. They hadn't
Friday.
switched to Wednesday. Yeah,
Yeah. I just remember me and my roommate staying up and watching it, and that was so much fun because
yeah,
it was like they weren't big into the MCU and I was, so I was like, here, like here's a little introduction into what this like what the MCU is. And so it was fun.
yeah.
I just really enjoyed the show
It was a
in general.
great way to hook people in. Yeah, and like you said, even people who aren't watching it, I feel like you could watch that and still get pretty
Yeah,
hooked into that.
right.
All right, number 6. We're almost to the top 5. Number 6, keeping in a theme with the special presentations. This is where I have Werewolf by Night, and for me, just everything that you said about it, so stinking enjoyable. I
Hmm.
just love how unique. It's arguably the most unique project the MCU has ever done. I love the creative choice to do the black and white. That was genius.
Hmm.
I loved the just the horror elements. I love the gore. I love how violent it got, and
Right.
that was honestly such a shock. I did not expect that at all, and I'm just really excited to see more of those characters in the future. Yeah, fantastic project. Easily one of the most well done projects Marvel has ever done.
Hmm.
Period. Which is why
Yeah.
it's ranked so high because I mean, and I enjoyed it. And I talked about how I'm not going to rank stuff just because it's well done. But if it's well done and I enjoyed it, even though it's just a one episode, 40-minute thing, man,
But my number 6 is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That was
this
one of
is
my
definitely
top
the great. This is
shows.
the definitely the greatest disparity
Right.
between us as far as our rankings are concerned. Everything else is pretty close, and that's one
Yeah.
that I have it ranked all the way at 12, and you have it 6,
I will just say I think for me it's just biased. I just thoroughly enjoyed that show.
and that's okay.
And I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm on an island with that show where I'm the like talking with people, I'm the like on the in the minority where people are like, I wanted Bucky to be Cap. And I was like, I've wanted Sam from the get-go.
Yeah, Sam made way more sense, way more.
Right. And I like Anthony Mackie as an actor. I
Love
think
him.
he's hilarious, and
Yep,
I wanted to see more of him in the MCU, and I think he handles the Captain American role well.
perfectly.
And I'm glad we get a little bit of history on Isaiah Bradley, and I hope we get some Patriot out of his grandson.
Yep,
So
gonna be great.
it should be. I think it sets up for like some of the more like not street level, but like more like Captain America, New World Order,
New
those
World
sorts
Order
of
is
things. Yeah,
it's gonna be a banger. The Cap projects
yep.
do not miss. I can't wait.
They haven't missed yet.
No,
I really hope
they're
the
3 for
start of
3 on
Anthony
those movies.
Mackie's. Yeah, I can't imagine that it'll be bad. I really can't
Nah,
imagine that they'll pull a Thor: Love and Thunder.
no, there's no possible way. All right, man. Top 5. Here we go.
Top five.
My number 5 spot. This is where I really had to think a lot on these top 5 because,
Mm-hmm.
man, they could go either way. My number 5 is Shang-Chi. Number 5 is Shang-Chi for me. And this was tough to rank here because, again, we talk about just things being well done and how they're constructed.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, at this point, it's clear that No Way Home is going to rank higher than Shang-Chi for me. and I'll
Mm-hmm.
explain why. But Shang-Chi is a better movie. It's just a more well done movie from top to
Yeah,
bottom than No Way Home. It absolutely is. I don't even
I
think it's
agree.
I don't even think it's a question. But No Way Home, more memorable, more iconic, and I'll talk more about that when I talk about my Spider-Man ranking wherever I have that. But Shang-Chi really, man, it was so good. I just rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and it's just a
Yeah.
phenomenal movie. Arguably the best fight scenes in the MCU.
Oh yeah.
It has one of the better villains in the MCU with Wenwu slash Mandarin, and
Mm-hmm.
the characters are great. The visuals are phenomenal. Soundtrack and score on point. Phenomenal origin story. I love a good
Right.
origin story, and it does Shang-Chi's so well. And yeah, everything about this movie is. I saw it 3 times in theaters, so there is not a
Yeah,
thing about this movie that I do not enjoy. I think it's a top 10 MCU project for me, to be honest. And at some
I
point, we
would
will
agree.
do our full MCU ranking, and that is going to be a daunting task. But yeah, so Shang-Chi, number 5, love it. I cannot say enough good things about that movie.
Yeah, Shang-Chi is also my number five.
Hey, let's go. Our first match.
I'm curious if we match from here on out because I'm
It's gonna,
pretty
dude.
sure.
It's gonna be close. Yeah, we have a lot of the same remaining. Actually, all the
Yeah,
same remaining. I think.
yeah, we have all the same remaining, and I feel like I have a theory that our five and number one are going to be the same.
Yeah, they are.
Um, but totally everything you just said. The fight scenes were awesome. I had never really like heard of Shang-Chi as a character before, and so
Yeah,
this
I
made
knew
me do
nothing.
a lot more research into him, and I really like this character. I would love to see like if we get some sort of like secret wars where we have heroes fighting heroes like Shang-Chi versus Cap sort of thing. I don't
Yeah,
know. I feel like that fight would be sweet.
yeah.
Or, Shang-Chi versus whoever.
Like
I just
Bucky
want to
or
see
somebody.
more like
Yeah,
fighting. Yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah. The fight choreography was so on point because I believe,
Right.
could be wrong, but I believe one of the people that they had doing choreography for that is someone who's done choreography for a lot of Jackie Chan stuff as well. Which,
Right.
I mean, when you watch it, it's just in that same vein, and Jackie Chan's fight choreography doesn't miss either.
Right. And I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the actor who played Shang-Chi, they
Simu
couldn't have
Liu.
gotten, yeah, they couldn't have gotten anybody better
No, not at
unless
all.
this movie was made 10 years ago and they got Jackie Chan to do
Right, right. Yeah, that's the only
it.
way.
That's the
And
only
even then,
way.
I love Jackie Chan, but Simu Liu just
But
fits it so well.
yeah, he
Yeah.
killed it. But yeah, I have Shang-Chi at number five.
Yep. I think this is where our top 5 is going to differ, and I only say that because I know what our show rankings were, and
Hmm.
so I believe this is where a disparity is going to be in the top 5. But my number 4 is Moon Knight, and honestly, I toyed with having Moon Knight ranked below Shang Chi and having Shang Chi at 4 and Moon Knight at 5. But this is where the
Hmm.
enjoyment thing came
Right.
for me. Like, is Werewolf by Night a better done project? Is Shang-Chi a better done project? Yes, both of them are. But my enjoyment of Moon Knight was as high as almost anything in the MCU. I
Right.
enjoyed watching Moon Knight on a week to week basis more than any other MCU show, even Loki, which I have ranked higher than it, obviously. But my enjoyment of Moon Knight was higher. But yeah, I just love this. Made me love the character Moon Knight and make him one of my favorite Marvel characters. Period. Oscar Isaac, arguably the best acting that we've seen in the
Yep.
MCU.
Oh, for sure. I mean, closely tied with Jonathan Majors and Loki. I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard to top
yeah.
those two.
The creativity of the show, fantastic. Tonally, was it inconsistent like every other show? Yes, it started out as a super mysterious, spooky thing. Then it turned into Indiana Jones for a while, and then we had a big monster fight scene at the end. So like the show was all over the place in terms of tone. I would have loved for it to keep the tone that it had in the first 2 episodes throughout the entire show. If I could make a critique and change things, I think that that's what everybody thought it was going to be the
Hmm.
whole time. And for people who maybe didn't end up enjoying it as much, I think that's why. Even though I still liked the episodes where it did have that
Right.
Indiana Jones feel, those were good episodes to me. But I think there's something to be said about keeping a show tonally consistent the entire time. And yeah, they're figuring it out, but still one of the most enjoyable projects Marvel's ever done for me.
Totally. And that's the one that got me and you texting. about
Yep.
Marvel for
Yep. For
that.
sure. Started it all.
Yep.
Your number
uh,
4.
my number 4 is Loki.
Yep. I knew that was where it
Um,
was going to be.
I would have loved to rank it higher, but like you said, a lot of these top fives are going to come down to enjoyability
Yep.
and like personal preferences. Um, I had thought like the Loki character was a little bit annoying before the show. And so I was always like, people were always like, oh, Loki's one of my favorite villains, blah, blah, blah. I was like, he annoyed me.
Dude is a sleazeball.
Yeah. But like after this show, I was like,
You love him.
I love this guy. Like I want to see more of him. And
Yep.
he's somewhere out in the multiverse right now having to deal with Kang,
Yep.
you know,
You can't not
somebody
love
go
him
help
after
him.
this show. You can't.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, that's why I've got Loki at 4.
Yep.
I honestly the in these top 5, um, a lot of these could be switched around, and I don't think I'd be upset about it.
Right. Absolutely. Uh, my number 3 is Loki, and this is where I had Loki in the show rankings as the number 1 show. I
Hmm.
just think that Loki was it was by far the most game-changing project I think the MCU has ever had. It literally basically created the multiverse saga, and
Right.
it introduced us to Kang, who is without a doubt going to be one of the greatest villains the MCU has already done. He already is. He's been in one episode for like 30 minutes, and he's already one of the best villains the MCU has ever had.
Oh
Jonathan
yeah.
Majors is just a powerhouse, and I cannot wait to see him just beat the absolute crap out of the Avengers and Ant-Man. Like, I'm rooting for this guy. I am rooting for him to win. I love his character so much. I can't wait. And I think it had the best finale out of all the MCU shows, bar none. Yeah, like everything you said about Loki, I didn't find him as
Mhm.
annoying as you did, but I also didn't care a ton about him. And with it, yeah, by the time
Right.
episode 1 was done, I'm like, man, I love this dude. So
Yep.
it was such a well done show, and one of the best things Marvel has produced. Period. In
For
my
sure.
opinion. So that's number
Definitely, I would
3.
agree. My number 3 is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay,
I would
where did
love
I
to
have?
rank
Oh,
this
there we
higher,
go.
but I just think there are two things that I enjoyed a lot more. Spider-Man is my all-time favorite Marvel character,
I know. I
all
was kind of
time.
surprised to see it at number 3 for you.
I yeah, it really comes down to enjoyability. Like I mean, it's in my top 3, so I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. This is one that
Right, you
I
didn't
saw.
dislike it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one I saw multiple times in theaters, um, and then have watched multiple times since.
Yep.
Just Tom, Toby, and Andrew in one movie, like
So good.
and then how amazing the Goblin was, and
Yep.
how underappreciated Doc Ock is in this movie too. I
Yeah.
thought Alfred Molina did
So
amazing,
well.
and I don't know. I just I do wish that they did a little bit more with Lizard.
Yeah,
I feel like they could have done a
I
little
don't
bit more
like
with
that
that.
they just kind of sat on the side and they were just there existing. Now,
Right,
I know why, because the movie was created during COVID and they didn't actually
right,
have them. They
right.
had everybody else for this movie. They did not have those two actors. And so, yeah, there's only so much you can do. But I agree. I still
Yep,
think you could have done more because
exactly.
clearly they still did stuff in their CGI form and they could
Right.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pulled one scene out of the Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire with Sandman that I
Yeah.
noticed
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, they just put that in reverse.
They literally
Um,
did. Yep. Gotta do what you gotta
but
do, I guess. COVID was
yeah,
tough
exactly.
times. Okay. My number 2 is Spider Man No Way Home. And which yeah, I think I know what your number 2 is gonna be. But yeah. No Way Home on rewatch when you're not in a packed theater, it definitely loses some of its magic. And when you watch the movie without a packed theater, there are definitely spots in this movie where they had moments of silence because they knew that the audience would react. And so they wanted to allow time for that. Like when Andrew Garfield steps through the portal, he just kind of goes, ta-da, and
Right.
like there's like he does no one says anything because they knew the audience is gonna go
Right.
nuts. And when you watch it afterwards, you're just kind of like, that's a little more awkward than I remember it being now. And think like, yeah, that's nitpicky, but it definitely does not feel the same when it's not in a packed theater. I think when you rewatch it, it's a little chaotic and confused,
Yeah.
especially in the first and like part of the second act. There are plot holes all over, honestly,
Yeah.
in this movie, and I don't have time to go into them, but there are plot holes in a lot of different places in this movie. And you can tell like a lot of it was fan service. They're just wanting to include some of these characters in, like there for some of the villains, there isn't really rationale for them being there, even though they try to give rationale, but there are plot holes in that rationale. And
Right.
yeah, the first half of the movie, you could take it or leave it, to be honest. It's still good, but I sit through the first half of Spider-Man No Way Home because I know the second half is coming.
He's coming.
That
Yeah.
is, and that is why No Way Home is number 2, though, because the second and third act are up there with the best of any Marvel movie. The second and third act of that movie are just amazing fun. You get the 3 Spider-Mans, which I could just sit there and watch them talk together and interact together with no action for 2 hours by themselves. It's that
Oh, yeah.
enjoyable to me.
Absolutely.
Their dynamic was fantastic. Like you said already, the villains, especially Doc Ock and Green Goblin. I do wish we got more Doc Ock in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't like that once they turn him into a good guy, they're just like, all right, we're done with you. And he goes away and then comes back. Like, where the heck does he go? Also, why does he leave? He knows that Peter needs help, and Doc Ock's just like, nope, and dips. Really? Like, you're one of the people that has the ability to help him, and you just leave him. Yeah, I wish we got more Doc Ock, but I loved him in it. Love Green Goblin and Peter's character development. This was the quintessential Spider-Man project. Like, this had everything a Spider-Man project needs. This had the trauma and the heartbreak that Peter Parker experiences all the time in the comics and in other Spider-Man movies. And this nailed it with that. And this really was like the completion almost of Peter Parker's origin story through the course of 3 movies in the MCU. So yeah, it definitely has faults, but its strengths greatly outweigh those faults and still make it such a fun movie to watch.
Totally agree. Yeah, my number 2 is Moon Knight.
Yep. Knew that was going to be
just there. Moon Knight has been a favorite hero of mine for a while. Having an on-screen adaptation of him was super cool. He was one of my first comic reads. Well, the Jeff Lemire run. And Oscar Isaac just killed it.
Man.
He killed it. And I feel like that was the most like talked about show.
Yeah.
And people, people
maybe even more into
WandaVision.
Marvel.
Right. And I just feel like people who weren't even with Marvel or up to date with MCU stuff, they were like, even like, oh, like that one episode where he wakes up in the asylum. You're like, what in the world?
It was everywhere.
Number
1, then. It is no surprise what this is because it's the only one both of us have left, and I knew this was going to be both of our number 1s. My number 1 is Wakanda Forever, and
Same here.
I've seen it twice now, and I want to see it a third time, and I will find a way to see it a third time. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. But Wakanda Forever, especially on rewatch. The first time I watched it, I loved it, still loved it, but it was so much to take in. It's a 2-hour, 40-minute movie. There's so much to take in, and it was so emotional on top of that. So like, and I was recovering from COVID, so I think I was just like half out of it, but also just trying to take everything in that the movie brought to me. And then the second time I went and watched it, I walked out and instantly I was like, this is a top 5. This is a top 5 MCU movie for me without a doubt. It bumps out.
Same here.
It's better than the first Black Panther in my opinion, and I love the first Black Panther. It's in my top 5, but this bumps out the first Black Panther for me. I believe it's one of the most well done movies in the MCU. Maybe the best acting in the MCU period, especially when you consider the cast as a whole. You have Letitia Wright, who carried that movie as Shuri, and I did not expect her to carry the movie. I thought, hey, Letitia Wright, she's been good in other projects. She hasn't been mind-blowing, and she carried. And why am I blanking on Queen Ramonda's actual like name? Like Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett deserves an Oscar for her performance as Queen Ramonda. And then you have all the other characters. Nakia was fantastic. Okoye, her performance was emotional, man.
Yeah.
Just everything. And then you have maybe some of the best character development. Shuri's arc in that movie might be the single greatest movie arc or single greatest character arc in a movie in the MCU. The only competition that I could think of is our two spot, or my two spot, which is Peter Parker.
Peter,
Tom
yeah.
Holland's Peter Parker. That's the only one I can
And
think of that
yeah,
competes with that. But
Tom Holland's Peter Parker was over like 5 movies though.
right.
Shuri's is in one.
Well, but even his character arc from the start of No Way Home to the finish was
Right.
just insane.
Yeah, so yeah.
But Shuri to me might have the greatest single character arc in the MCU. It's the most emotional movie in the MCU without a doubt. It had the second time I saw it, I cried like 3 times. You have one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best MCU villains, Namor, who is just a powerhouse. Maybe the most sympathetic villain in the MCU, because when you look at things from his point of view, I don't know that he does anything wrong. Like, I agree with almost everything he does, and you see why he does what he does. He's not really a villain. He's just an antagonist. He's someone who opposes the main character that we're having to watch.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it has the best, in my opinion, the best score and the best soundtrack out of any
Same.
film in the MCU. I have literally listened to that thing,
agree.
listened to it on repeat for the last 3 weeks, just all the time. I love everything about the movie, and I don't care if, like, I know there have been mixed reviews. By and large, audiences have loved it. I think it has like a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is insane.
Yeah, audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 95%. They kind of disrespected it with the tomato review at 82% or something like that.
Kind of surprised, kind of surprised on that, but I don't care. I don't let that dictate any of my thoughts or feelings. But that just goes to show, I think a lot of people really loved it. Yeah, it's one of my favorites ever. It's always going to hold a special place in my heart for a really long time, and absolutely my number one.
Yep. Say it. I mean, yep. Obviously, my number one as well. Namor quickly became. I don't want to be too rambunctious here, but a top 3 villain or anti-hero.
He's
or
up there.
Whatever. I want to see more of Namor.
the way he was able to switch from first part of the movie, you're like, oh, this is a really nice guy, and he's showing Shuri his, Talokan and giving her his backstory. Oh, this is a really nice dude. And then all of a sudden, like, the way he flips that switch and he meets Ramonda on the beach and he's like, if you bring anybody into Talokan, I will kill you myself. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, like, this dude is
like, he means business.
Right. And he floods.
And he did do business.
Right. Floods Wakanda, kills the queen. And like in the middle of killing the queen, looks at Shuri and is like, bury your dead, mourn your losses. You're queen now. And I'm just like, jaw to the floor when he said that. And he's out here single-handedly taking down Wakanda ships out of the air. What a beast, dude.
Right. And this has a combination of probably the coolest, like, civilizations that we've got in the MCU.
Oh, for sure.
The Wakandans and the Talokans.
Yep.
Like, wow. Both, like, Wakanda, like, we've been known that Wakanda is super cool, super dope. Like, someplace that everyone wants to visit. But Talokan, like, ooh.
Makes me want to do some deep sea diving.
Yeah, that and like Disney World, Disneyland, get on top of it. Let's get our own, like, like we've got Harry Potter World and Universal Studios, but like,
can we get an aquarium and it's Talokan? Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that'd be sick.
That'd be sweet. But yeah, and I thought it was like a perfect combination of like a Chadwick Boseman memorial, but also keeping up with the expectations of a Black Panther movie. They went
still
like
held its own.
It.
Yeah. Fantastic tribute, but still did its thing.
So Ryan Coogler, Kevin Feige, give him a raise.
Bro, can we please get him on an Avengers movie?
Yeah, he's rumored to do Secret Wars.
He's rumored. I kind of feel like he's pushed back on it a little bit, but at the same time, we know that they're not allowed to spoil anything. So he could be pushing back just because he's not allowed to give away that he is. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. But man, that would be sweet if he was the director of Secret Wars.
To get him.
Bro, I'll pay $30 for my movie ticket. I'm telling you. I'll pay $30
for the movie ticket, and then if you want to bump up my popcorn price from 30 to 60, go for it.
Right. Can we talk about also how this had the best end credit scene out of any MCU movie, at least in my opinion? Because when you did call it, I can't believe you called it. But when he came walking out, and I saw him with Nakia, the waterworks started happening.
We're going.
And when he said, first he said his name was Toussaint, which cool name. But when Shuri asked him who you really are, and he said, "My name is Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa." Like even now talking about it, like I'm getting emotional because that
Right.
was just such a fantastic moment. One of the coolest things for me seeing it the second time. Mutual friend of ours, Preston, was
Mhm.
sitting next to me, and I'm just like I'm watching it, but also I'm watching
Like
him.
keeping an eye on
I'm
him.
watching him and Noah's reactions because I know it's coming. And once he sees the kid, and once he realizes, I see him just like looking over at me and back and forth, and I could see him visually freaking out, and then he starts crying when it's happening, and oh man, just like what a perfect way to tie that movie up, and it satisfied everybody, right? You had the people who wanted to
Right.
recast T'Challa, they got what they wanted because T'Challa is recasted, but it's not the same T'Challa, but it's still T'Challa. And the people who didn't want him recasted, they got what they wanted because we got Shuri as Black Panther. It was perfect,
Yeah. And
absolutely perfect.
I think I really wish I don't, this is not a knock. This is something that I just personally wish they added when he says I'm T'Challa, son of King T'Challa. I wish he did the lip thing.
Oh, like show the
Yeah.
yeah.
I would I don't know why. That's one little detail that I think I would have added.
Maybe it's 'cause, like they already knew that he was
Yeah.
Wakandan, so maybe they didn't feel like
Yeah.
it was
I
needed.
just thought that would be really cool.
Yeah,
But the other thing is M'Baku challenged for the throne, which
yeah,
I thought was really cool too, because his character arc in that movie
yep.
is visible as well.
I can't wait
And
to
it was
see
just
him
a
as ruler.
fantastic movie. Yeah.
And Winston Duke alluded in an interview to what we already pretty much knew, but he basically confirmed that yeah, he is the leader of Wakanda now, which I think was definitely strongly implied anyway. But you always
Hmm.
had it like, okay, but what if they push back? What if someone else challenges and they beat him? But he definitely made it sound like in an interview, like, no, he is the king, and it dude deserves it because yeah, his character arc from the first movie to Infinity War to now, so good, and he's deserving of that position, and I can't wait to see
Yeah.
what that's like.
And honestly, I would it'd be cool to see him don Black Panther for a second, just
Yeah, it
because
would.
he'd be massive in
He'd
that
be a
suit.
beefy Black Panther, dude. Well, hey, that's it. That is the Phase 4 rankings. I'm not going to read through them because they're here on the screen. You guys can see them, and there's 18 of them. But man, I feel pretty good about my ranking. Now that I'm
Yeah.
looking at it from top to bottom, I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I'd really change much. I think I'm satisfied with where that's at. Now, when we do an entire MCU ranking, that's going to screw everything up because now I got to fit these in with like 30 other projects. But for now,
Right.
I'm satisfied where this is at. I loved Phase 4. Cannot wait for Phase 5. I think Marvel. I think we're entering into a peak era of Marvel. I
Yeah.
really do. Phase 4 finish so strong with Werewolf by Night, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, and we go right into Ant-Man. What a way to end and what a way to start. Well, that is the episode. Thank you guys so much every week for tuning in and just supporting our podcast. Make sure you guys give us a 5-star rating if you have not done so already. Make sure you follow and subscribe. Make sure you follow the YouTube channel because that's where visually this episode is going to be, along with a lot of other videos and shorts. So make sure you follow at Midwest Marvel Guy on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram if you want, although I feel like that platform's trash. But follow me on there as well if you're on there. I do post on there on a daily basis, and we appreciate your guys' support. And so we don't know what our podcast is going to be next week. We're going to figure it out. We got some time to fill between projects,
Hmm.
so we're going to get creative, but we have some ideas. So
Yep.
love you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening and hanging out with us. And until next time, peace out, nerds.